And I got the vibe right off the bat. So she's just going to be one of these, like, I don't remember anything. I got everything queued up. I have a complete timestamp, like, you said this at this moment. Like, I got the receipts. And so now here we start with the receipts. I said, you would agree that you, at one point in time, you eventually resumed your sexual relationship with my client. But you also agree you didn't tell the detective that. You actually lied about it. You told him that you hadn't been involved with him for 3 months, since October. Oh, I don't know. I don't recall. Okay. Boom. Got the recording where she's like, yeah, he's just an ex. And I think this is where the case was won.
Welcome to Another Not Guilty. I'm David Moore, here along with my fellow public defenders, presenting to you the untold stories of the criminal justice system.
Objection! That assumes there's justice in the system, which there ain't. I prefer calling it the American criminal system.
These stories are about the not guilties public defenders get on a daily basis.
In an unjust criminal system.
With the deck stacked against us.
Welcome to another Not Guilty.
All right. Welcome to another episode of Another Not Guilty. I'm Dallas Gutman, a PD in Cincinnati, Ohio. And McKay, we're back after a break. We haven't done this in a minute, so it's good to see you.
It's been a minute. It's good to see you too. I know I feel a little rusty. I'm trying to remember how a trial works, what happens after opening, everything, but
you're going to be great. I believe in you.
Yeah. We're still locked in. Still credentialed lawyers. Here with a great guest today, we have Mike Detardo out of the Sonota Law Firm in ATL.
Yes, I am. I work, like you said, for the Sonota Law Firm. We're like, people like to call it crimigation. I think that's the term that's used now. So
I've heard that.
Yeah. So it's criminal defense and immigration. So a lot of our clients, not all, but a lot of our clients either have some sort of status in the country or none at all. They get arrested, and now they got two problems, right? So one with immigration, one with the regular county they're in. I handle the second part. I don't do immigration stuff, but I have to kind of know enough to be dangerous. But yeah, that's where I'm at, and that's what our firm does.
Okay, great. And so you're not a public defender, but you're a defense attorney. I
am. And I used to be a prosecutor, so please don't hold that against me.
Boo hiss.
Wow. Okay. We welcome all life pathways. And
everybody makes mistakes. We're only human.
Well, and truth be told, growing up, I wanted, well, first of all, I wanted to be a major league left fielder, right? And once I realized that wasn't going to happen, I wanted to be a lawyer. And I actually grew up wanting to be a criminal defense lawyer. And I took a couple twists and turns and wound up being a prosecutor for 10 years before I wound up getting to this side.
You wound up being a prosecutor for 10 years?
Yeah. You lost the plot.
Yeah.
You lost the plot, Mike.
Yeah. It was all that power. I just couldn't give it up. No. Yeah. Honestly, really, the truth of the matter is, like, it was just a program I got into at law school that was probably my best chance of getting a job in a DA's office. I did it, and I had the good fortune of working for DAs for 10 years that trusted me to do my job the way I thought it should be done. If I thought somebody needed to be buried underneath the prison, I would do that. If I thought a case was bullshit and it needed to be dismissed, I got to do that too. Like, I just got to do what I thought the right thing was, whatever that was.
I think that's probably rare. I mean, this is maybe an unpopular take in the defense community, but I respect that. I really do, and I respect getting a job and hustling, and sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. But now you're back on the sunny side, and we're happy to have you.
Thank you.
And we are excited about this case. It sounds like a wild ride, so strap in, people.
Yeah, we're getting the roller coaster.
Do we need to put an explicit content warning?
Explicit content warning.
If any kids in the car, I probably don't need to be listening to this one.
Or they're going to get an anatomy lesson today, people.
Yeah.
Without further ado, let's turn to the case. Talk about what your client is charged with.
So he is charged in a 9-count indictment. He has 1 count of kidnapping with bodily injury, 1 count of rape, 2 counts of aggravated sodomy, 1 count of obstructing a 911 call, 2 counts of cruelty to children in the 3rd degree, 1 count of battery family violence, and 1 count of terroristic threats. So 9 counts. Those top 4 counts, any one of those 4 in Georgia, if you're convicted, carries a mandatory minimum 25 years in prison up to a maximum of life in prison. So all told, he's looking at 4 life sentences, There were 4 misdemeanors, and then the terrorist, I think that's a 5-year, so 4 life sentences plus 9 years in confinement.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is a serious case.
Yeah.
What are the allegations against your client?
So the allegations are essentially, it centers around him and the mother of his child is on again, off again girlfriend. So client is a 25-year-old. He meets and I'll say she's a victim because she was actually a victim in one of the 9 counts. We decided prior to trial that we were going to enter a guilty plea to the battery charge because that was the only thing that he was guilty of doing. So I'll just refer to her as the victim, just to keep it simple. When this crime allegedly happened, my client's son was 11 months old. The victim also had a 3-year-old son from a previous relationship. So basically in the house we have 3-year-old, 11-month-old, my client, and victim. So the 4 of them living together. It gets to a point where she gets pregnant again in about, I think it was July of 2020. Ultimately, my client decides he's going to move back to Michigan. And a few days after that, she informs him that she is going to have an abortion. And so he is very, very upset about that. It comes into play later on with the trial, but he decides beginning of, I think like end November, beginning of December, he's going to come back down to Georgia. Sometimes he's staying with her. Sometimes he's staying with his best friend, Jamal. Everything sort of comes to a head on December 30th of 2020. He's kind of getting this vibe that there's maybe something between the two of them, between Jamal and the victim. One day he just finally asks, like, what's going on with you and Jamal? And the story from the victim is, oh, well, there was this one night, we were at a club, and he was kind of grinding on me, but that was really it. December 30th, kind of the day part of that day, he's messaging her. He's still kind of pissed off about it. Messaging Jamal. I don't know, how could you try to move in on my mother of my child? All that. But he calms down, and he goes to the house, and he decides he's going to try to apologize for, everything, for reacting the way that he did, but also all of the cheating over the last several months. So he writes her these beautiful notes, and he buys her flowers, and he buys these her favorite wine coolers, and he has them all there ready for her.
Real quick. So is this the day? So December 30th is the day of the incident, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so are we about to get into the incident right now?
Because right now, all the facts that I've told you are agreed upon. Like everybody agrees. Like this is what happened.
Cool. I just want to make sure. Okay. I don't know. Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're going in that direction. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So she comes home. He gives her the flowers, the wine, the notes, the everything. I'm sorry. I didn't have any right to be upset with you. You were just grinding with him on the club. Sometimes that happens. You know how that goes, right?
Right. Who among us?
Yeah. I mean, come on.
Did the note say, "I'm sorry, I got mad at you for grinding on him on the club"? We all do it.
Later on, the crime scene people, they take pictures of everything, and you do see ripped up pieces of some of the notes, but unfortunately
the
they're
note
not
got destroyed.
The
so
note
you didn't get to cross and
no.
you said, sorry, I understand you were grinding, and I'm okay with that now. Or
no, it did not. But you saw the ripped up notes, and we'll get to that. But anyway, so he's there, and he gives her the gifts, whatever, and so. As my client tended to do, he's hanging there and he's out on his phone, and the victim becomes suspicious of who are you texting? And so she grabs his phone and she sees that he's texting one of his many ex-girlfriends. And so she loses it, and he basically tries to turn it around on her and is like, well, let me see your phone. And she's like, no, you can't have my phone. And he grabs it, gets into her phone, and what he sees is highly explicit text messages between Jamal and her. He goes a little further and he finds racy videos that she is sending him. And then the final thing that really set him off was he sees a video that she took where she's in a hotel room with Jamal, and it's pretty clear that they had just had sex, and then kind of pans over and you see his son is sitting near the bed.
This is juicy. This is like Jerry Springer level drama. And you know what I find too is that most of things that happen between people is because of toxic relationships like this. Don't be with them. Just go back to Michigan. You guys are not meant to be together.
You're previewing my closing argument already, by the way. You didn't even know that, but that is
Yeah,
part
it's
of my
not
closing.
uncommon that
It's
we're
common, yeah,
sentencing,
it's
and
really
the
common.
judge is like, are you still with her?
Yeah. So,
Okay, and is this still the agreed upon version?
oh yeah, agreed. We all agree on
Okay.
this. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So now we're at
Okay.
the part where the fork in the road, where the two sides disagree. So let's start with the state's version of events.
Okay, state's version of events is basically at that point, my client goes into a rage, begins beating her up, punching her in the face, in the body, throwing items in the house against the wall, punching the wall, basically just like going into a complete rage, which is actually not, maybe not to the extreme that they portrayed, but that's consistent with what my client acknowledges that he did. He does acknowledge that he did hit her, that he threw some items, but not to the extent that she sort of made it seem like. But the state also claims that at this point, after he's going into this rage, that the victim tries to use that opportunity to scoop up her two boys and make a run for it, basically. She tries to get into her car to leave the house, at which point my client grabs her, basically drags her back into the house against her will, threatens to kill her, tells her that if she tries to leave, that he's going to kill her and kill both of the kids. So at that point, from that point forward, her excuse for why she never tries to escape or call or do anything is because he threatened that he was going to kill me or the boys, so that's why I didn't do anything. Apparently what she says is that he then goes and takes the boys and puts them upstairs to go to bed. Again, one at this point is 3 and the other is 11 months. And she just like waits downstairs patiently, I guess. Then he comes back down and proceeds to, for the next 2 to 3 hours, forcibly rape her vaginally, anally, forces her to perform oral sex on him downstairs, then goes upstairs where the two boys are sleeping apparently, and does more stuff up there, ties her up with like a rope tie up there, and rapes her up there, then brings her back downstairs, and that proceeds on for a couple hours. And it's just like something out of a horror film, basically.
Yeah, that sounds terrifying.
Yeah.
Right, if true.
If true,
Right.
terrible.
Right.
So eventually she gets so tired of everything that what she says is she decides that I'm just going to take a bunch of morphine pills that I have over here and kill myself. That you have to promise me if I do that, then you'll take care of our son, and then you'll make sure that my older son gets to his father, and that you won't hurt the boys, basically. And she throws back like 12 morphine pills. Before she dies, my client feels bad and decides to allow her to use her phone to call 911 for help. And they come up with, because she has bruising on her face. So before she calls, they have a discussion about how they're going to explain these bruises. And the explanation is, we'll just say that you got jumped earlier today, if somebody asks you about the bruises. Once victim gets to the hospital, she is pretty quickly not believed by this whole I got jumped story. So they call the police. The police start questioning her. And then she immediately flips to the version of events that I just gave you. So they arrest him.
That's where you come in?
That's kind of where I come in, yeah.
Okay.
But, important fact is they do no other investigation at the point that they drop the warrants, right? They hadn't at that point even gone inside the house to, got a search warrant, nothing. Hadn't done anything.
Right.
So, yeah, that's kind of where I come in.
So there obviously is many problems with that story, just off rip, right? And I'm sure you get into all of them. What did you think when you heard that version of events? What were you feeling?
The biggest thing to me that stood out was the nonsensical suicide pact part. That was by far the strangest part, right? Because if you actually believe that this man is capable of killing you and your 2 children in your home, would you as a mother ever agree to just kill yourself and leave these 2 kids with said guy?
Right.
No, you would never do that. So, that to me was the biggest, that don't make sense, right?
Yeah.
Then, part of what the victim tells the police is, oh, hey, by the way, one of the times that he was forcing me to have sex with her, or forcing him to have sex with me, he was recording it on his cell phone. So like, if you get his cell phone, you'll see the rape. And at that point, we didn't have the video or anything from the cell phone. In the detective's report, he describes he's seen this video, and in his report, he says the video shows him brutally raping and sodomizing said victim. And I'm like, okay, but you know how police are sometimes when they write the reports. They see it the way they want to see it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, we'll see the video. So that's kind of was like my first impressions of the case.
So how did you meet your client?
I met him in jail, and he was in custody in this case for 3 years.
Wow.
He had a bond, but it was, I want to say the bond was like $100,000. And from the jump, he tells me, like, listen, man, I know this sounds crazy, but we had this sexual relationship where we had this rape role play, rape fantasy sexual relationship. Like, she loved when I would tie her up and, you know, force her to do things, and she would tell me, no, stop, and I wouldn't stop, and, like, she was into that. And that in a nutshell is most of what happened that night. He's like, I did hit her, you know, that part happened because I kind of flew off the handle, but the rest of this is made up.
How is he feeling when you first meet him?
I felt like he's a pretty well-adjusted, like, normal at this point, but I did throughout the course of the 3 years, because I think when I came in, he had been in custody for, like, 9 months.
Okay.
Wow.
And
he's like accepted. He's like, it's like sank in a little bit. Yeah.
But he's, over the course of the 3 years leading up to trial, like, I saw him go, like, mentally, like, go down, you know, like, I saw.
That's hard to watch people, like, kind of disintegrate. I've had that before in trials where, you just watch someone's mental health just, like, go down the tubes. It's really tough.
He was pretty hopeful in the beginning because I think he got a good vibe from me and kind of thought, like, okay, this guy, you know, knows his stuff. And the county that this case happened in was a county that I was a special victims unit prosecutor in for, like, 4 years. So, like, I feel like he felt pretty good about, like, me helping him and representing him on the case.
You know the field from having worked in it. Is this your first trial as a defense attorney?
This is my first trial as a defense attorney, yeah.
Yeah, how are you feeling?
Imposter syndrome, right? It's like, I was the government, right? So, like, anyone can win on that side, but, like, this is what separates the men from the boys or the girls from the women. But yeah, first trial. So I'm like, okay, and now all your friends are going to be sitting here in the Gwinnett County Courthouse, like, watching you to see, like, all right, yeah, we saw Mike when he was a prosecutor, but let's see him do it over here.
Right, like, all eyes on you. Exactly. Like, you jumped right in with, like, 2 feet on this one. Can we go back to what your client said happened? Because I think that you said that they had this, like, rape fantasy.
Right.
But I don't know if you took it all the way to, like, her killing herself. So, can we go back to what your client said happened?
So that's essentially his story, is that he did hit her, did flip out at first, but then things calmed down. They had consensual rape fantasy sex. And then in the afterglow of that, essentially he tells her, like, I could never be with you now, knowing, like, what you're capable of doing to me. She flips out. She tries to kill herself, and that's how that goes.
Yeah, whatever version. This is a roller coaster for me too. Her version, his version.
Yeah.
So as far as discovery, what do you get in discovery?
So I get a lot of pictures. The CSI person, like, earned their paycheck on this case because they must have taken, like, 700 pictures. There was a lot of stuff that was, like, thrown around, but at a certain point it's like, okay, yeah, we get it. Like, there's another piece of paper that's on the floor. I also get the pictures of her injuries, so she did have some pretty substantial bruising to her face. I think she may have had 1 or 2 marks on her body, but there were no injuries to her vaginal area or anus. And that's important for reasons we'll get into later. They also took photographs of my client's knuckles, which were a little bit red and bruised. So they have photos of that. And then they took his cell phone. And in the cell phone, we've got the videos. There are a few videos of sexual encounters between the two of them. I think there were, like, 6 in total. Like, 5 of the 6 were, like, 20 to 30 second clips of her performing oral sex on him.
Are they all from that night?
Yeah, all from that night.
Okay.
Yep. And then there was one video that was about 20 minutes long. It's the most, like, calm, chill setting. They have what I would consider, like, regular, like, vanilla sex. Like, there's nothing too crazy about it, except she's got bruises on her face, and they're saying things to each other, you know, as if he had just like beaten her up and was actually raping her. You do hear certain times where she's like, "Yeah, I want you to rape me. I want you."
But
to
you
rape
can
me.
tell like the vibe isn't like a rape and sodomy vibe.
No,
It's like a
So,
everyone's
not giving
consenting
hostage
vibe.
either.
Yeah.
So like I'm watching this video and I'm like, all right, like I can work with this. You know, like this is not at all what the detective represented it to be, and you know her face is bruised to shit, so that's not good, right? But at the same time, she's not acting at all like what I would think someone who is actually getting raped
She's
would
into
act
it. Yeah, she's into it.
like. She's acting the way like I would think someone who this is like a 50 Shades of Grey type spot. Yes,
Right.
sure. He had also sent himself from her phone the videos of her and the best friend, so he had that on his phone. Here's some not good stuff for us. So
That was the good stuff. Let's talk it.
So they went ahead and got a search warrant for my client's cell phone, and at the time, there hadn't really been any cases in Georgia that said, like, hey, you can't just go get a search warrant and dump the person's entire phone and look through it if you only have reason to believe there's just one little thing on there.
Is there case law about that now?
It does now exist, and the case came down like right before our trial happened. Honestly, as a prosecutor, I would be sitting there sometimes going through a defendant's phone extraction, and I'm like, this kind of seems wrong. Like I don't know of a law that says I can't do this, but like it seems wrong when I'm like, just because a person's cell phone, like that's like their stuff, you know, like that's their life.
Well, I mean,
right?
you think about it in the context of like a search warrant. Like, you can't go looking for other things. I mean, if you find them, you find them, and if
Right.
it's like within the scope of what you're looking for, like, but you know, if you're looking for a body, you can't look in a drawer, like,
Correct.
you know, and that's like the same type of idea.
And it comes down to probably to particularize too. Like if the phone is a house, then like this folder, that the photos, like it's not, you could be in the wrong room.
Yeah,
Right.
100%. So in this case, they got a search warrant for his phone only because the victim tells the police he took a video of the crime. So go find that
So you know
video.
you're looking for that video.
Correct. But
So-
they extract all of the data on his phone,
Yeah.
not just the videos. And the technology exists. Cellbrite will allow you to get specific things.
Right.
So this
So
case,
they find something bad in this dump?
yes. Then what it is he's searching on his phone how to get away with murder.
Oh my god. Never search that. Okay, listeners, never search that. Don't search that. You don't want, just figure it out yourself.
He also searches how easy is it to get away with murder.
No.
He searches domestic violence, GA, I'm assuming for Georgia, and then what should I use to tie her up?
That could go, okay, that
No.
could cut either way. I don't hate that one as much.
I wind up winning a motion to significantly limit the amount of evidence that they're allowed to use from the phone, but my explanation for those things were going to be he wanted to kill his best friend. He wasn't trying to find out how to kill the victim. He was thinking about killing the best friend, which is what he told me.
Also,
and
he's
then-
not charged with attempted murder, right?
100%.
So, like,
Thank you, Dallas. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you. 100%. Not charged with murder. It's not illegal to think about killing somebody. Okay.
yet.
Just think. No, you're correct. Yeah.
We're getting dangerously close, but yeah.
So yeah, thought crime. So yes, it's not like my defense was going to have to be like it's not a crime to just think about killing somebody, but also the person he was trying to think about killing was the best friend. He wasn't going to kill the mother of his child. But anyway,
Ladies and gentlemen, he was trying to kill someone else. Not her.
and then also in the phone there were texts to other people that he was sending saying like he was ready to kill somebody that night once he had found out about the grinding, the story that they gave him about he was texting people being like, I'm gonna have to kill somebody tonight.
That's like a colloquial phrase.
I
know.
agree. Come on.
Who hasn't said that?
Come
Yeah,
on.
I would say we're reaching a peak level of potential colloquial uses of things.
Yeah. How to get away with murder. Everybody Googles that.
Wasn't there a show? I think there was a show called How to Get Away with
Yeah.
Murder, right?
He's trying to find the new episode of the show.
Yeah,
Who
sure.
among us hasn't Googled that 5 times in one night?
Yeah.
Calm down.
But I also find eventually, and there is a significant amount of data on the extraction, as you probably know, but like I also do find text messages between the two of them where they are talking in very graphic detail about this rape fantasy that they would have, where she's telling him, I really, really like it when I tell you to stop and you don't stop. Right? Okay. And, we don't use safe words. That's probably dangerous.
She's like, I want this to be unsafe.
Yes, I want this to be like...
Please, and dangerous. Take me to the edge and back,
She sends him a text, which I wound up using in closing, where she goes, LOL, toxic AF. So I find what my client told me was going to be in his phone. I eventually find it, and then I'm very excited. Obviously, I bring it to him at the jail, and he's like, I told you. But, because before I found these text messages, I'm like... Yeah, of course, the jury's never going to believe you, right? Of course they're going to be like, yeah, of course you're saying it's a rape fantasy.
Right.
Actual evidence of it. She's probably never going to admit it, but now I have, proof. So that's basically what I get in discovery.
Do you do any of your own investigation?
I tried contacting the victim. One of the other things that we're doing on the front end is trying to see, is this a case that's going to go to trial, or might they offer something that, everyone can live with to minimize the risk that he's facing? So
yeah, were there offers?
There were offers, but not the best offer was 25 years in prison to follow by life on probation as a sex offender. So that eventually was the best offer. So
what did he say when you brought him that offer?
No,
yeah,
absolutely not. Now what I was lobbying for was something more in the range of 10 to 15 years. He was a younger guy. He would survive that. Now he would be a sex offender and everything that comes with that, but. Yeah. If he loses, he's never getting out.
What's the exposure on the battery?
1 year. It's a misdemeanor. Okay.
I will say 25 is a rough offer, but 4 of these charges have a 25-year mandatory minimum. Is that right?
Mandatory minimum. Those merge? I think the way that they alleged it, they would not merge, because I think they took the kidnapping with bodily injury, the rape, and then the 2 ag sodomies. They did 1 for anal, 1 for oral. So no, I don't believe they would merge.
They charge this from every angle.
No pun intended.
But off.
Yeah, so in terms of investigation, I tried to reach out to her mainly because I wanted to see, do you really want to see him go to prison, or what's the deal here? But she never responded, so whatever, that's fine. And then I also... Part of the discovery was, I forgot to mention this, so recordings where the detective's interviewing the victim at the hospital, and then he does a follow-up later on at the police station, a week later. And in the follow-up, he mentions, yeah, I went to your neighbor's house to see if there was any, surveillance videos or anything, and it looks like one of your friends, came to your house that night. Now, he didn't mention that in his written report. And I didn't have a copy of any surveillance videos. In terms of investigation, I'm well, I wonder if I can find this video and what it might show. Yeah. So I drive out to the neighborhood, knock on the door, and talk to this guy. And he's like, yeah, I don't have it anymore. And the detective came out, and I showed it to him. And he said he was going to come back to get a copy of it, and he just never did.
Wow. And so there's someone in the driveway during the time where this whole
for an
hostage situation was supposed to be going on.
Apparently, according to the only person that he's the only one that saw it, other than I guess the neighbor. But he didn't. Right. He didn't really remember. He
had no significance. Yeah.
He just handed over his phone that showed the recording, and the detective watched it, and that was it. So yes. So I made note of him. I subpoenaed him just in the event the detective tried to lie or say that, I reached out to the neighbor and he didn't get back with me, or, something like that. So I set him up for that. But that was really it in terms of investigation, other than just reviewing all the discovery and having everything ready to go.
So then you're you've rejected offers. We're going into the trial phase. So before trial, did you, were there any significant motions or any pretrial hearings?
Yes, huge motions. So I mentioned that the Supreme Court of Georgia ruled shortly before our trial that essentially where they had gotten a search warrant for someone's cell phone and requested all data, and the Supreme Court held that's a general warrant. You can't do that. You have to specifically tailor it to what it is that you have PC for. Because these programs are capable of distinguishing that, right? They can sort by dates, they can sort by text versus videos versus whatever. So
but yours was a little bit different, right? Because that they did the warrant was just for the videos, right? But they got everything?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
No, like the affidavit, their probable cause affidavit just referenced the video, but their request said all data.
Oh, okay. So it's on point. Okay.
Yeah. So I file a motion to suppress everything from the cell phone based on it's a general warrant. I kind of made a mistake here. I had assumed that the state was going to call the detective and then call the person that does the extraction, the actual expert, right? And this is one of the things, like the lessons I had to learn as a defense attorney, because as the state, I was always like, I'm the one putting up the case. I'm the one putting up the witnesses. I know who I'm calling, and I'm just like focused in on that. And as a defense attorney, you can't count on the state calling somebody. So I had assumed that that's who they were going to call, those two people, and that I would be able to question this expert about the technology, that the tech is capable of, if you're just looking for videos, you can get just videos. And he never came. And the only person who testified was the detective. And the detective just flat out lied about what the technology was. I thought I was still going to win that motion, but I did not. I lost the motion to suppress. So at that point, all of the data from the cell phone is in. And so I file a motion in limine basically saying, like, only allow them to introduce the video, which, by the way, I kind of wanted the video to come in.
I know. I was going to say, I think that's a better way to do it, because if you suppress everything and then you introduce the video that's on the cell phone, I think you kind of open the door to the rest of the cell phone.
Correct.
Where now the cell phone's coming in and you've limited it. So I think that's a better way. It all worked out.
Yeah. Oh, and there was a call history too, where the victim's story is my client takes her phone and holds it and does not give it to her for the whole night. Yet the call log from my client's phone shows multiple calls throughout the night between the two phones. And there was one phone call that was like a minute and a half long. So that was also like very strange to me. Like why?
Between her phone and his phone?
Yeah.
Oh, well, and they're together?
Well, they are by both accounts. Yes, they're both in the house that night.
Weird.
Now, by her account, he has both of her phone. He has both her phone and his phone. We also filed a motion to introduce rape shield evidence.
Can you explain what that is?
So, rape shield basically is saying that to the extent the defense is going to try to bring up anything regarding sexual history, partners, sexual amours, anything like that, they have to file a pretrial motion about that, and it has to fit under certain criteria, otherwise it doesn't come in. So, like in our case, we were going to be bringing up evidence of the two of their previous, their sexual relationship, right? That they had this rape fantasy situation to explain that, in fact, what happened here was consensual, which is one of the permissible, allowed purposes of that kind of evidence. So we won on that end.
So this is like a procedural motion that you have to file to put your defense on.
Correct. There were also videos. So in her interview with the detective, she tells the detective, we have not been sexually involved in 3 months. This is the father of my child. We're not involved at all. She's definitely painting it as if like they had a clean break back in October when he first goes to Michigan and she has the abortion. When in fact, there is evidence on her cell phone that they were still engaged in a sexual relationship, both from afar and then ultimately when he comes back to Georgia. So that was also something that we were going to put in and needed to file that motion to make sure we were good to do that. And then there was also evidence that during her sane, she said that she had had sex with the best friend like 2 days before, or I think a day before this. So to the extent that they were going to try to argue that there was any sort of injury to her body, that would be something that would be permissible, that would be allowed under the rape shield statute. But
there's evidence that they had sex too. So that could be.
But if they were going to try to make the argument that like she had some sort of injury and my client caused it because of the force that was involved, we needed to be able to show, well, he wasn't the only person that she had sex with in the recent last day or two. So that was the rape shield. And then here's the thing that's like never happened to me before, and I don't know ever will happen again. So run up to trial. I told you all the different counts that he's facing. One of the counts that he's charged with, one of the misdemeanors, is cruelty to children in the 3rd degree. All right, which in Georgia that means anytime you commit a crime of family violence in front of a child, if they can see it or hear it, or if you commit a forcible felony like rape or aggravated sodomy, where a child can see it or hear it, that's cruelty to children in the third degree. And they charged my guy with 2 counts of that for both
each
kids.
kid, yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
The problem with that is there was no evidence whatsoever that this 3-year-old saw or heard anything. In fact, they eventually interview the 3-year-old, and he talks about seeing my client hitting her, but he after that says and then he uses my client's name and says he takes me upstairs and he put me down and gave me my Batman toy. Nothing about seeing a rape or he was on mommy or anything like that. So, but they charged him with this count of cruelty third degree anyway. So, in the run up to trial, I think that the state realized, actually, we have no evidence to prove that count, and they wound up not calling the 3-year-old to testify anyway.
Good for them. I mean, honestly, that 3-year-old's been through enough.
Sure, but part of my defense was going to be this case was a rush to judgment. That was going to be one of my defenses.
Yeah.
In fact, it was, I think, 13 minutes. The detective had been on scene, had talked to the victim for 13 minutes before he starts making comments to her about, don't worry about the defendant. I'm going to be taking him to some very fun places. You're not going to have to worry about him. Before he even, goes
Fun
to talk
places.
to him.
He sounds like he's going to sodomize him.
Yeah, right?
Good God.
So the state moves to null pros or dismiss count 7, which was one of the counts of cruelty children third degree, because they don't want to have to get up in front of the jury and be like, actually, we don't have any evidence to prove that count.
Yeah.
So they make their motion right before we start jury selection. The judge turns to me. I'm assuming you have no objection, Mr. Detardo. I'm like, actually, I do. I object. And she's like, why? And I explain. I go, Judge, part of my trial strategy is going to be that this case was the detective completely rushed to go ahead and arrest my client, and the state just rubber stamped everything that this detective said. They did no investigation, because if they had, they would have seen the truth of what this situation was. And she kind of sat there and thought about it for a little while. She's like, well, Mr. Detardo, you're always making some creative arguments. You know what? You don't want me to dismiss it? I won't dismiss it. So I'm like,
she
great.
did it? They didn't dismiss it?
Did not dismiss the count.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Okay, but that's bold, though. That's extremely bold. What does that charge carry?
It's a misdemeanor. It's really not
okay.
bold.
That was
Dallas.
okay. If it's a misdemeanor, I understand using it for trial strategy. If it was one of the 25 to life.
Yes.
Don't
Yeah.
dismiss the rape. We want to try
argument with that charge going. Damn.
Yeah. So those were all the pretrial motions.
So where in time are we? So the incident is December 2020. So now with these
30th.
motions, where are we?
We do the motions. I think the motions to suppress all the cell phone stuff happened early in 2023, but then the rest of everything else kind of happened closer in time to when the trial was, which I want to say was November 2023.
So now we're
Okay.
3 years almost. So
Yeah.
and you said your client kind of took a downhill turn. So can you talk a little bit about how he's feeling during these motions?
Yeah, he kind of started to be like, well, because I was, again, still trying to see whether there was some sort of plea offer that the state would make that he would maybe be interested in to minimize his exposure. And he kept saying, I'm either dying in prison or I'm getting out after the trial. I'm dying in prison or I'm getting out after the trial. I was just like...
How are you feeling at this point? You've won some good stuff, and you've got a
feel-
lot. I think you got a favorable motions outcome. I really do. Yeah.
I feel like I have a shot, but the big thing that in my mind, I'm just like, can I find 12 people who are not just going to say to themselves, well, if he beat her up and punched her in the face, then he must have done everything else.
So moving into jury selection, in this county, are you hopeful that you can find jurors like that?
Yeah, so Gwinnett County, in the last probably 8 years or so, there had been a significant, influx of a more diverse jury pool that I did feel like, I feel good about my chances of getting a jury that's going to consider things from all angles and not just take the perspective of well, if the police said he did it, then he must have done it, type thing.
Is it judge directed, or do you get to kind of pitch your case during it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
good,
no.
because the last couple people we've interviewed have been judge directed, so this is going to be fun. I like talking about
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Take us there, yeah.
One of the things I wanted to see was is there anybody out there that's not aware of this whole 50 Shades of Grey, women and men sometimes consensually engage in this rape fantasy sex thing? Is there anyone who's no way that's not a thing, right?
Good question.
I actually did get a couple hands on that. So,
Okay.
including one kid who did make it onto the jury, and he was, oh my God. So this kid was, I think he was like barely 18, whatever the minimum age is. I think it's 18. He was homeschooled. He put his hand up on this question.
Oh God, he got a real lesson, right?
If watch here, he's like, he gets to know, he's like, oh, I have jury duty.
The whole jury.
He's like, Mom, why didn't you tell me?
Well, what really, when he really was in for it was like, so he actually got picked, and I didn't really mind him too much because I kind of had him as one of those, like, he's going to go with the flow people. But apparently when the sex tape, as I was calling it, the sex tape was playing, he was like, so.
But I think that's not one of those questions that's like, if people haven't heard of it or don't think it's a thing, it's not something to strike on, really. Like, if they don't agree with it, maybe, but if it's like, I've never heard of it, then maybe it's a good opportunity to educate about it.
But yeah, I was mainly just being like, well, if there's someone that's like, that can't possibly be what actually happened, right? So, but I didn't really get too many on that. The other question that I asked, just point blank, and I like to try to just put my soul out there for the jurors and be just like completely as honest as possible. It's like, I want to be honest with you guys. I'm very, very worried. I'm representing this man for his life, and I just feel like he's going to plead guilty to the battery charge. I'm just telling you right now, before this trial starts, he is entering a plea of guilty to the battery charge because that's the only crime he committed. And I'm worried that because he's entering that plea, that the juries in this case are not going to actually consider whether he's guilty of the other crimes he's charged with. Does anybody feel like that might be the case for you? Because I was testing that out because that was really my main fear.
Did you get anybody on that?
I did. Yeah. I did get a few. Yeah. And like all these questions, I kind of always suspect that they're not being completely honest.
Right.
But yeah,
that's a good deselection tool, though. That is.
Yeah, put your biggest fear out there and see, like, what comes back.
And this is a case where they kind of bungled the investigation, so you're going to go into that. Did you talk about who believes law enforcement no matter what? Who would take? Okay, did you get anyone on that?
I asked this question: does anyone believe that the police? They've just faced too much criticism in the recent couple of years. Because remember, this is 2020.
Yeah.
The trial happened in 2023, but
right.
It's not too far off of that.
No, we're still in the thick of it. Yeah.
That's a really smart way to word that.
Yeah. Is anybody instead of just being like, are you pro law enforcement? Like, does anyone think the police they're kind of catching a little too much shit? Like anybody? So yeah, and I got several people that put their hands up on that. It's not per se disqualifying, but it's something that, it's okay, let's maybe be careful of that person.
How was the prosecutor's voir dire?
I didn't really think that there was anything out of the ordinary there.
Do you like your jury at the end?
I do. I do like them, but we'll see. But again, the other thing I talked to my client about is, really, you got 4 counts here, and we got to go 4 for 4, right? You can't go 3 for 4. You go 3 for 4, that's a loss.
How's he feeling at the end of voir dire?
He's scared, and but he's kind of also like in this weird mindset of like, I'm going to prison for the rest of my life, or I'm going home. Like, at least it's going to be over with.
Getting into opening, state opens first, then you, right? How was the state's open? Tell us about that.
So first, he starts by mentioning an excluded text message. So he talks about something that he wasn't supposed to talk about, which I don't object in the moment. But he talks about one of the text messages that day where he's like, "I'm gonna have to kill someone later," and that wasn't supposed to come in.
Right. You don't object in the moment.
Don't object.
What's the strategy of that?
I don't want to draw more attention to it because I know what's gonna happen. And the reality is, I'm not asking for a mistrial because my client is done with it.
Ready
he wants
to go,
this case going, and I don't think that that's gonna change the outcome. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring it up once he's done with his opening, which I did, and the judge scolded him, and he tried to be like, "Oh, I didn't understand that part of the order. I'm sorry, Judge."
Oh, wait, that was included too?
That specific message is to mention that when it's not coming into evidence is, to me, it sounds reversible. Like, that's so incendiary.
But also, it's in opening. It's so much happens between opening and when they're deliberating that if it's never mentioned again, maybe they forget about it.
So he says that. Then he says this, and I actually quoted it because I wanted to tell you what I said in response later on. He goes, "By the end of this case, I believe that you're going to look at rape the same way as violence, as someone with a black eye, and treat it the same. Rape is about power and control." So he's basically saying, like, rape and a black eye, same thing. So when I get up in my opening, I said, Prosecutor said at the beginning that I think you'll find that rape is the same as a black eye. And I know that they're hoping that you buy that, because a black eye is the only thing that they have, and it's the only law that my client broke. So I was able to sort of throw that back at him. He also said in his opening that the older child was around to witness what happened, which is definitely not true. And he later had to concede in closing argument, like, yeah, remember I said that, I was wrong. And then he said that there's blood everywhere, which there was not blood everywhere in this case. So he was promising, he was writing checks he wasn't going to be able to cash. He also, the other thing he did in opening, and he continued to do it until close, which I thought was a bad strategy, was he was focusing on the rage that my client felt about the abortion. And so he wasn't talking about what I thought was the most logical motive for my client to have actually done the things that the victim said that he did, which was he was pissed off she was banging his best friend.
Yeah, so and had found out that night.
Correct. Like,
yeah.
How
like contemporaneous motive.
Yes. The thing that happened 2 months ago, or the thing that happened 2 seconds ago. Like, what do you think? We're all looking for who did this.
5 years ago, she borrowed his car, and it got
Okay, and then yours was the throwing it back at them, and then was there any other zingers in there?
No, I wanted to, as many times as I possibly could, put these texts where they're talking about the rape fantasy stuff, and where she's talking about all the specifics of the non-consensual things that she was really into doing. Like, I wanted them to see that as much as possible, so they kept that open mind as much as possible. Like, I'm a very big believer that you open strong. Like, you gotta put it out there. Don't hide anything. Don't I'm going to save it for this beautiful aha moment on cross or whatever. Like, no, because I do think, like most jurors, they start to make up their mind in openings, and so make sure you can cash the checks that you're writing for sure, but like don't hold anything back.
Right.
So
it's also when they're paying the most attention, probably.
100%.
Like
yes.
after opening, they're like, "Oh God, we gotta sit here for a week."
Yeah.
They're like, "How many charges?" Yeah. No, and I think opening's so powerful because jurors can read energy. Like the genuineness with which we speak is palpable, and even if you don't remember what was said, you remember how you felt.
100%. Yeah. So I open strong. I mentioned the 13 minutes 46 seconds. I mentioned that a couple times. 13. Like basically tell them like, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we didn't have an actual investigation in this case because 13 minutes and 46 seconds in, detective made up his mind. So like you're our detectives for $25 a day. I'm sorry, but this is your job now, and you're going to have to do it. And I'm going to be here to help you along the way. But that's kind of where we're at. So that's pretty much what I did.
Reframe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we get into witnesses, right? So the state starts calling witnesses. Who do they call first?
So crime scene tech guy, or girl, I think. Nothing really crazy there, just a lot of pictures and a lot of apparent blood. And I verified that they, in fact, didn't test any of the blood. And also, of course, we don't know when that blood got on the things that it got on. But there wasn't a lot. I mean, it just said that there was a lot, but there was not. There was like a couple spots of blood on the carpet and maybe like something on a robe. But
that was the prosecutor's blood everywhere?
Blood everywhere.
A couple spots?
That, and in the seine, there was evidence of blood in her vaginal area, but it was explained by the seine as menstrual blood. Like that it was not from an injury. And the prosecutor in his close is like, I know the seine said it was menstrual blood, but I don't believe that.
Like, you can't say that.
I let him say it because I was like, sure, I'm not going to object. Give your opinion. That's ridiculous.
I know they said my client raped her, but I don't believe that. Okay.
He was pretty frustrated at that point.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So the first one was the crime scene, and they were CSI, crime scene investigator, and they were just talking about the pictures they took and some blood they didn't test.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Next was doctor from the hospital that treated the victim, and there weren't any bone fractures. The worst I think she had was a contusion, and then the bruises. So the one thing that was weird that they opened the door on is, remember, she took like 9 to 10 morphine pills at once, and she didn't get to the hospital for like an hour or so. So they asked the doctor, is there any reason that someone who took that many pills wouldn't die without Narcan? And the doctor's like, well, if they had built up a very high tolerance to opiates, that would be one reason.
Wow.
And I'm like, so basically you're saying, like, your girl's popping pills.
Well, I mean, if you have morphine pills just laying around, it's probably not your first rodeo with pills, but...
But, yeah, like, I was... And then, so on cross, I just, doctor, I just want to make sure I heard you right when you testified. Did you say that that it was because of built-up tolerance to opiates? Is that what, I didn't hear you? So I made sure to do that. But that was pretty much it for Doc.
Okay.
Next was the victim. So she went through the history of the relationship, and kind of throughout direct, there was very dramatic pauses and batting her eyes, and she was definitely, like, playing the role of someone who had, been brutalized in the way that she claimed that she was.
Well, she's got to sell it. I mean, at this point, sitting in the chair in the witness stand across from, like, the father of your child who you're trying to put away for
3
life.
years later.
You got to sell it. Yeah.
Yep.
That's fucked. Yeah.
So here is the oh my god moment of her direct. So we get to the point where the state introduces the video of the sex tape, as I call it. The video of the crime, as the state calls it.
We'll call it the sex tape for all intents and purposes. I like that.
At various points of this video, she appears to be having an orgasm. The prosecutor asks her, it sounds like you were having an orgasm of some kind of that kind of stuff at different points in that long video. Were you experiencing that? Her response, God, I was kind of waiting for it to be over. I did have an orgasm once. I thought about my kids most of the time.
Oh my God.
Whoa.
I wasn't probably going to go there. I was just going to let the video speak for itself.
Mm-hmm.
They went there. She's like, no, it was a legit orgasm, which, of course, the medicine, the science tells you is absolutely a possible thing in scenarios where someone is legitimately being raped and it's not consensual. Sometimes the body does that. Like, I know that as having done this job. But, like, for her to be like, I was thinking of my kids, it was just like, it was weird. So
yeah, she was doing too much there. She didn't have to do all that.
Yeah. So she kind of goes through everything, and she sticks to the script for the most part. So again, on direct, she's very, very gentle, and she's got to take breaks, and she's doing all that, right? So I get up on cross. So the first question I ask her, it's really just like I'm trying to see how cooperative she's going to be with me. I go, did you review the statements that you had made to law enforcement prior to testifying today? Did you have an opportunity? Her response was, not really. Okay, so I go, okay, well, what do you mean by not really? Is that a yes or a no? No, I can't recall. So, like, right off the bat, I know that this is going to be I don't recall, I don't remember, please ask the question again so I can stall and think of what my answer is going to be. Like, I can tell, and I'm like, great, because the thing I was most worried about was she was going to get up there and she was going to own everything. She was going to own the text messages. She was going to say, absolutely, in the context of my consensual sexual relationship with your client, we did engage in this role play, but it was never after a time where he beat me about the face. That's how I expected her to testify, and had she testified that way, I feel like she would have had significantly more, more credible.
Well, one thing's for sure is that alleged victims who are lying are not slick at all.
No,
they're just not. No. They think they are. They think they're getting ahead of you. They think they're seeming genuine. Mm-hmm. They're just not.
So, yeah, and I got the vibe right off the bat. So she's just going to be one of these, like, I don't remember anything, which is a good thing for me because I like to be Mr. I have the receipts guy. I got everything queued up. I have a complete timestamp, like, you said this at this moment, like, I got the receipts.
That's the best feeling. You're like, okay,
so great.
Let's go. Yeah.
So now here we start with the receipts. So we agreed, I said, you would agree that you, at one point in time, you eventually resumed your sexual relationship with my client after this whole abortion argument, right? You'd agree with that. She's like, yeah, I agree. And I said, but you also agree, you didn't tell the detective that. You actually lied about it. You told him that you hadn't been involved with him for 3 months, since October. Oh, I don't know, I don't recall, Okay. Boom, got the recording where she's like, yeah, he's just an ex. And so I immediately provide her with, like, right off the bat, you're going to deny something that you know you lied about. I'm going to be able to make you look dumb in front of the jury. So, like, set the tone already so then instead of her just flat denials, now it's changing into the more like, I don't recall or I don't remember, but I'm still, every time she's lying about something, I've got the receipts. I started showing her the texts. Like, is this your text? Is this your text? And she's taking forever to read over these texts they're not. It takes
It's like
3
three
seconds
words.
to look at it.
Yeah.
And she's very clearly, and I talk about this in closing argument. She's looking at it's a printout of 3 messages: her message, his message, her message, and she's looking at it for 4 minutes.
Yeah, she's like, what do I say? What do I say?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I'm telling the jury. I told him in close. I go, she's thinking about how she's going to lie her way out of it.
Yeah.
Instead of just, if she were genuinely, if she had actually been the victim of the things that she says that she was the victim of, she would have just got up there and been like, yeah, I texted him that, and like, yeah, we did that, but this was a different thing. Like,
yeah.
he took it to another level, and I was in such fear for my life that I just kind of went along with it, but I did not actually consent to it. Like, instead of playing it that way. So she's lying about a lot of stuff. She's denying and can't recall. And
did she ever like get that you had all the receipts and she stopped lying?
No, not really.
That's painful.
Yeah, that's painful for her. And,
exciting for you, painful for her. Yeah.
And I think this is where the case was won, honestly. Because it was just such a terrible performance by her on cross. And then I sat down, and then no redirect from the state, which that's always a good sign for you. Like, they're just like, we want this to be over with.
Yeah.
Like, they want to give it another shot. So that was the victim.
Great work.
Then we had a crime tech who had just they went ahead and got a buccal swab from my client and tested it, and his DNA was in her exam. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
So they called a witness to say that, so that was cool. And then they had the SANE, who happens to be a man.
Can you just explain what a SANE is?
Yeah, sexual assault nurse examiner.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
They do like rape kits. They examine rape kits. Okay.
The state kept making this big thing of like, so ladies and gentlemen, the SANE, it's a man. We just want to let you know that he happens to be a man. I'm like, okay, I get it's unusual, but like they kept had this
SANE
weird
is a
thing.
man?
The SANE is a man. It is a man.
And the state like brought it up 20 times?
Yes. So they call the SANE, and the SANE testifies no redness or injury in the vaginal assessment. The bleeding was but it was a menstrual cycle that was going on. Okay. He said the most that he said was bleeding could have possibly been accelerated by the assault, but there was no active bleeding. So in my opinion, it was menstrual blood. That's what he said. No injury or redness anywhere on the genital areas. Now, here's a little pro tip I like to use. So a lot of times when there's no injury for something that people might think that there should be injury for, they'll like to throw out the little stats, right? So the stat that they threw out here was, less than 10% of sexual assault patients actually show any genital injuries, even though a sexual assault actually occurred or could have occurred. They like to say that
They
to make the point
testified
that,
that stat? Do you object to that?
If that's what their research and their experience tells them, then yes. But I think the better way to attack that is to say less than 10% of sexual assault patients actually show injuries, even though they've been sexually assaulted. How do you know that those people were actually sexual assaulted? Like, how does a study get that number? You're just assuming they were assaulted because they said it? And usually the answer is like, well, yeah, if they reported they were sexually assaulted, they were sexually assaulted. Like,
Yeah.
Okay.
so you're not accounting for the possibility that those people are making that up, right? Nope. And they'll usually admit to that. And then the prosecutor asked him a question that I think the guy was completely surprised by. He asked him, what is Stockholm Syndrome? And the SANE was like, I'm familiar with that. I don't know the exact definition or the research articles, but I know that Stockholm Syndrome is a way that a victim will go along with the perpetrator or the captor just to get the event over with, and they'll act like they're possibly enjoying it and they're being friendly with the person, but it's not necessarily how they would act when the situation doesn't occur. That is literally what his quote was, which is not Stockholm Syndrome at all. So when I get up on cross, the last thing that I ask him is about, did you diagnose the victim with Stockholm Syndrome? And he says, well, no, I didn't formally diagnose with Stockholm Syndrome. I go, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Stockholm Syndrome a situation when the person that is captured has no previous relationship with their captor at all? Like they don't know who they are? Oh, yeah, that's true. And in actuality, in Stockholm Syndrome, the person refuses to cooperate with the authorities because they sympathize with their captors, right? Like that's Stockholm Syndrome. And that's not what happened here, right? She reported that my client did these things to her. Yeah, that's true. And I go, so the Stockholm Syndrome thing was just something that the prosecutor just asked you about, but you would agree that that's nonsense, right? He's like, yeah. Yeah, that's not real.
Nice.
This guy's like almost a defense witness. Like,
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah, now
Yeah.
you.
I also was able to get out through him that she claimed that she had been strangled and blacking out and woke up to my client penetrating her, but she never testified to that. And there were no strangulation injuries on her exam, even though she was asked 1 to 10 level of force. How is he strangling you? She said 8. And there were no marks on her neck whatsoever. So we got that out. So yeah, that was the sane.
All right. Anyone else?
And then we get the detective. This is where, as a prosecutor, I would get cases from detectives like this, and I wanted to strangle them with an 8 out of 10 force because they would do terrible jobs, and so like I would just have to clean up their messes, right? As a prosecutor.
Right.
As a defense attorney now, I proudly do not have to do that anymore.
No, you love it.
I get
It's
to
good
come
for the case.
at them.
Yes.
And so this poor guy got like my pent up 10 years of frustration with every law enforcement officer that ever did a half-assed job on one of my cases. Like I came at him. I don't think it was as significant of an issue in the case as the way that the victim testified, but I do think it mattered. So the photographs of my client's knuckles, remember I told you about that?
Yeah.
So I had been provided digital copies of these photos, and you see, again, he's biracial, so he's a little lighter skinned black male. You can see that there's some redness on his knuckle area. Okay, so the detective is the one that took these photos. So they're going to publish these photos to the jury, and now they have printed them out. And right before they're about to show them to the detective, they show them to me really quick, and I'm looking at these photos, and his knuckles are like, they look like there's blood on them. And I'm like, hold on a second. Like, that's not the same photograph that was taken. Like, these have been, I'm not saying it was intentional, but like, this doesn't look anything like the digital version. And he's like, I'm tendering them anyway. So I had to be like, I'm sorry, Judge, I have to object. Like, can we take something out outside the presence of the jury? So I tell the judge what's going on. The state's like, absolutely not. These are the same. So the judge is finally like, all right, so here's what we're going to do. You give me the paper copies, and then prosecutor, I want you to publish on the Elmo, the overhead thing, the digital copies. And she looks at the two of them, and she goes, and I quoted her here on this, there's a difference there. Same picture, big difference. Do you want to offer an explanation?
Wow.
This is her, the prosecutor.
Nice.
He goes, yes, Judge, I think it's subjective.
What?
And she goes, I don't think so. I'm the objective voice. And then she goes on.
I love it. Isn't it great when the judge like goes after the prosecutor and you're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I know, it's so rare. We're like, go.
He has to go ahead and we have to stop the show so he can get like
reprinted or
adulterated
something?
photos.
Yeah.
Yes. But that was really it. That was really all that they did because he didn't do much on his investigation. So they get the photos in, and then it's my time for cross. You know, I asked him about the comments that he makes, where he's telling the victim, like, don't worry about him. He's not going back to the house. I'm like, did you tell the victim that 13 minutes and 46 seconds into your being on scene? Yes, I did. Okay. You meant he was going to jail, right? Yeah. I also was able to cross-examine him about, he actually had taken additional warrants for things that clearly never happened, that nobody had ever said happened. Like, he took a warrant against my client for aggravated battery against the victim, alleging that the victim was unable to drive because her eye was so swollen. The problem with that was that at the point that he had taken the warrant, she hadn't driven a car. Her eye was a little swollen, but like it wasn't swollen to the point she couldn't see.
he just made it up. He was like, she probably can't drive.
Probably can't drive. And I was crossing him on that, and instead of conceding and being like, well, I assumed that she wouldn't be able to drive. He's just like, no, I think that she said that at some point. I'm like, well, when I established that she hadn't driven.
Yeah.
So anyway, there was that.
Well,
I also got in.
Warrant, like there were other charges that he started filing or tried to file that didn't make it.
They were dismissed. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, in his kidnapping warrant, he said that the victim had reported to him that my client grabbed her by the neck outside by the street, is what he said in the warrant. Like, that's what the victim told you that? He's like, yep, she told me that it was outside by the street. And so that's where I was able to tie in the whole issue with the surveillance video.
Oh, and the friend. Yeah.
remember when you didn't write this in the report, right? That you looked at the surveillance video and you didn't get it. You didn't get the surveillance video, right? He goes, it didn't capture what I was looking for, is what he testified to. That's the reason why he didn't preserve it. So your victim told you she was dragged out by the street, and we agree that this video showed the street, right? Yep. But you didn't save it because it didn't capture what you were looking for, right? Yep.
Oh, that's a beautiful cross moment.
Yeah. Okay.
Clean. Clean.
He was like almost proud of the shitty job that he did. It was baffling.
I think they have like an ego about them sometimes, and they feel backed into a corner, so they just like own it. Like, like I didn't do it, so what?
Didn't need to. This is so clearly open and shut case. I think it was kind of like his mindset. So yeah, that was the detective.
Is that all the state witnesses?
Yeah. Then just the other person who tested the DNA, and his DNA was in her vaginal and anal swabs.
Okay.
So, we said it was consensual, so no problem there.
Okay, so that's all the state's witnesses. How are you feeling after the state's case?
I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah, you got some good stuff out there. Yeah.
I'm always a little pessimistic about my chances and things. Like I think it's the way like I protect my emotions from like getting too high. So I'm feeling all right.
Yeah, and protect our emotions and protect the client. Like we got to play like we're losing because we don't know.
Yeah, he chose to like focus in on the one thing, and he apparently laughed when the victim said that she had a legit orgasm and she was thinking about her kids. Apparently he was like laughing about that. He's like, "That ain't believing her. Like that's bullshit. Like she's like so he felt pretty good.
I find that the clients do feel better after they hear the cross. Mm-hmm. I think that kind of is like, oh, okay. I see what's happening here. Like, it's hard to explain how it's going to go at trial because, like, often we don't really know how it's going to go. And we can't really describe, like, it's going to, it sounds bad as it stands right now, but we're going to poke some holes and it's hard to describe how that's going to really feel. But I tend to find that clients feel better after the state's case. If it's a good case. Yeah.
Sometimes not so much.
Well, in the sense of like, with my experience, it's like, oh, I want to testify, and then at the end of the state's case, they're like, I don't need to testify. Yeah, I'm like, okay, I told you, like, we're gonna get it out.
Because you're facing 25 to life times 4, and you've never seen a trial.
Yeah,
and it's your trial, and so eventually you're like, oh, okay.
Never been arrested. He was never arrested before. Like he had never been in any trouble.
Crazy first outing. He
had one this time.
Did your client testify?
He did not testify. I do feel like this one of those situations where I want to tell the client, like, here's my advice to you, right? And especially in a case like this, it needs to be your decision, right? Like the thing that I would feel terrible about is, as an attorney, if I felt strongly like you shouldn't testify, and I gave you that advice and I kind of badgered you into making the decision not to, and then you wound up losing, and you never got that opportunity to get up there and like say your side, So like I'm like completely open with him about that, and in my opinion,
it's their case. It's their case. It's their life. Yes. We don't know. They might want to. Go tear your case down if you want to. Like,
sure,
it's not my case. I'm going home tonight. So
exactly. And he clearly trusted me at that point, and he was like, "Tell me what you think, Mike. Tell me what you think." And I was telling him, but when we were prepping, because I did prep him in the event that he would testify, he had this habit of like nervous smiling or laughing while he was talking about this like very serious situation that happened that night. I'm like,
you're not testifying.
Okay, but you did put on a case, right?
I put up the officer that did the cell extraction. There was a message that I found where my client sends his cousin, who later testifies for him as a character witness, sends his cousin a picture from, I think it was like 10:45 p.m., where you can see their son is like on the ground, like in their room, and the victim is standing in front of him, fully clothed. That's important because the victim claims that this all kicks off around 8:30, and shortly after that, he basically strips her naked and is raping her from room to room and continues to force her to be naked throughout the course of the night. That was her story. So this picture showed that timeline couldn't have possibly been true. So I called the guy from the forensics lab for that. I called the cousin because later on that night before the suicide attempt, the cousin FaceTimes my client just to kind of like say, hey, what's up? What's going on? I think he was checking in on him because I think that my client had texted him earlier that day in frustration after he had gotten the story about the grinding and all that.
Was he the one that was like, I'm gonna fucking kill somebody?
One of those texts was like, yes, he was mentioning to his cousin. Yes.
That didn't come out, right?
Yeah, no, it did not. It didn't come out.
Good.
No.
Did you tell the cousin, like, hey, don't accidentally say
Yes.
this? Okay,
Yeah, don't go there. Yeah. And I'm like, so you FaceTimed, right? Yeah. And you talked to the victim and my client? Yeah. Did anybody seem upset? No. Was there anybody crying? No. Was there anybody like, hey, help me, he's trying to kill me? No, nothing like that.
Great.
Okay. So I had him. I also had this sweet old lady testify from his hometown in Michigan, the lady that was friends with his mom that came and talked about how she had met my client and seemed like, a good, peaceful person, and that the state tried to cross her and be like, you live in Michigan, you don't even really see him much. And she's like, actually, no, he brought his baby one time and, came to my house and we all like kind of visited. So, I mean, I've seen him pretty recently enough to have seen his kid. He's like, okay.
Nothing like a sweet old lady to add credibility to your case.
Yeah. Gotta have one of those in your back pocket.
Yeah.
Gotta have.
I have a paid actor I use. a Betty White.
Not essential casting. No, but for real, because we always dabble with the idea of a character witness. I feel like every case we have that in the back of our mind a little bit, like, oh, like, is that something a card we should play? But it's so rare that we actually do that. Were you worried about rebuttal at all for the character witness?
No, because, like, he really, prior to this incident, there's no evidence that he'd never done anything like this. He had no record, like, nothing. So, no, with this client, I was pretty comfortable with the character defense.
Cool.
And then I had a roommate come former roommate, and say, he's a good guy, everyone liked him, good heart, not a violent person. That was it.
Great, and that was your case?
That was it.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about close then. So state closes first. What's their close like?
They waive their opening close.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, they take their first one off the board, which I don't understand it, and you don't often see the state waive an opportunity to talk more. But I'm
Did
like,
you
all
consider
right.
just not closing then?
Me?
Yeah, so they can't rebut, and it's over. And they're like, wait.
Wait, I don't know. Procedurally, is that how it would work? If they waive and then you waive and then they can't rebut, they would just be able to.
But if it's a rebuttal closed and defense waives.
So I think that they're entitled to open and close in closing, like regardless of what we do. I mean,
imagine being the defense attorney that's like, hold my beer. We waive close, and then the state just shits all over him.
What the fuck?
That didn't work out like I thought it was going to.
Take it back. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Okay, so then you close first. So tell us about your close.
Yeah, first slide. LOL, toxic AF.
Perfect.
And I tell them, the other thing that the victim was doing in her testimony was talking about. She had all the buzzwords. Consent every time. No is no. This was her trauma that she went through. Like, she talked about, she had clearly been through counseling. And I said, that's great. Problem with that is, that's not what was going on back when this case happened. That's not the relationship she had. That's not the relationship she decided to engage in. And she can't now, 3 years later, with benefit of hindsight, say, oh, no is no, and consent every time, when she's here in this text message, and in this text message, and in this text message, talking about how much she enjoys it, when she tells my client to stop and he doesn't stop. I had this slide up there for a little while and just kind of hit on that point. And then I went through and just talked about how, this is how you know that she's lying about what she said my client did, because she's lying about these little things. Why would it take her 4 minutes to look at a piece of paper with 3 text messages on it? You know why. It's because she's thinking of the next lie. So you have common sense, So I was just kind of hitting that theme. I also just kind of threw a little bit of dirt on the state's case in terms of, like, they have a lot of exhibit stickers. They have a lot of, like, stuff here, but a lot of nothing burgers. Like, they're just putting in stuff to make you think that they have evidence of this when they don't. So I used the nothing burger term. I also used this thing where I had a defense attorney do this to me once as a prosecutor, and I'm like, damn, that's good. I'm going to steal that one day when I'm a defense attorney. He said, and this is what I said, I go, everyone wants the last word in an argument, right? A closing argument's, a different form of an argument. I don't get it because I don't have the burden of proof, the state does. So I need you to just do me one favor. The state's going to get up here, and they're going to say a bunch of stuff, and then you guys are going to go back and deliberate. And just do me this favor. When you're talking about the arguments that the prosecutor makes that I don't get to get back up and rebut, somebody say, well, what would Mr. Detardo have said to that if he had the opportunity to respond? Do me that favor. So I always kind of put that in there.
I'm going to use that next time, too.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah. So I like to throw that in there. And then for my grand finale, I pulled a move that really put the prosecutor into a tailspin. I revealed to the jury that my client's in custody and has been in custody. And I put up on there 1,004 days in a box. Wow. And I talked about how, because here's the reality. Like, it depends on the county you're in and how they kind of shuffle people in and out. But in Gwinnett County, they know. Every trial that I ever had where I talked to the jurors after, they don't know it for a fact, but they're like, we think he was in jail.
I also don't think it's the same as saying, like, you're deciding whether or not he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. You're not really talking about that. I don't really see the issue with it.
Well, and what I didn't want them to think was a few things. Like, I wanted them to know, because I felt like this was a case that could be close enough where they could be back there and they could say, all right, he did how many days? 1,004? All right, so we know that he committed the battery. Maybe we think he maybe did some of this other stuff, but we're not convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. I'd say 1,004 days in jail that seems fair.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of my thought process.
Yeah.
And I also kind of snuck in there, like, he has a bond, but he's just too poor to afford it. So that's the other thing is, like, I don't want them to think, like, he's in custody because, he has, like, 3 prior felony convictions. Yeah.
So you're giving the jury an out to just credit time serve him.
Yeah. So that's, I said, his clothes are a facade. We want you to not look at him and see him in chains and a jumpsuit and be able to be a fair and impartial jury. But the truth is he's been in a box every day for the last 1,004 days. Yeah. And now his life's in your hands. So that's kind of how I wrapped it up.
All right. So then let's talk about this tailspin.
The first thing he says, you disregard what he said about 1,000 days. That's not evidence. That's not evidence. He's just waving his hands, and I'm like, oh, he's
like
rattled.
Neon sign.
And then he's everything that he's talking about is either something I just said or it's about me. So they use 1346. We got a number. It's 8. That's how many hours she was tortured. And I'm like, yeah, I'm in his head. 1346. Thank you for repeating that.
Yeah.
They want to talk about nothing burgers. Well, I got this Whopper for them. And there's a picture of her face where she's got bruises on it. So I'm like, okay, well, once again, you're talking about me. Good. And then again, he launches into this is trying to connect the motive to the abortion and not mentioning anything about the best friend, her sleeping with his best friend. The only thing that he did that I kind of liked, that I thought was like, that's a little clever, is he had a picture of King John signing the Magna Carta. Have you ever seen anyone do this before?
No.
So basically, if you Google King John signing the Magna Carta, it's basically the king at a table signing the Magna Carta, and there's people that got like swords pointed at him. They're all like, so he's like, yeah, she consented to the sex, just like King John signed the Magna Carta. Yeah. And I was like, that's clever. I like that. So it was like the one thing that I thought was like kind of clever, but. He also started making future dangerousness arguments, which I let him do 3 or 4 times until I finally objected. Yeah. He also said, orgasms have been faked for far less than trying to save your life and trying to save the life of your own children. But again, the problem is she didn't say she faked it. She said she had real orgasms. So I'm like, okay.
This is probably why you want to do a first close, because then you're not like thrown yet.
Yeah, exactly.
You're able to like make sense.
Money,
you have like an outline. Yeah.
Absolutely. So to end things up, he's like, oh, by the way, you can find him not guilty on the cruelty to children 3rd degree. It was a mistake. We're sorry. And then that was how they sat down. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So then how are you feeling after that close?
Feeling great.
What a relief.
Great.
It's over. Yeah. You don't have to do it. I mean, not over, but, you've done all you can do. So you feel good.
Yeah. I feel good. Yeah. I feel good, but again, I'm the type that I'm like, I don't know. I'm still worried about that compromise possibility.
Cautiously optimistic. How's your client doing? Yeah.
he's good, but he's also kind of right there with me. He's like matching my energy a little bit, so I start to feel bad about like not being like rah rah. But you never know how these things go. Like I've seen so many different crazy things happen. Like I feel like we got a good shot, but you never know until you know.
Yeah. So you part ways with client. You go home. He doesn't. And you come back Monday. Do you guys like wait around in the courtroom for the verdict, or how does it work in your jurisdiction?
Yeah. So as a defense attorney, as a private attorney who does not have an office in the courthouse, you gotta just like hang out in the conference room. So that's what I was doing. I just was like, I had brought some other stuff to try to distract me. I just told him like, I'm gonna be out there. Like if you need me, I'm there. So we got a couple questions. So there was a question about. There was something that came out that the first responding officer had actually been terminated, and I tried to get into the reason why he was terminated because I didn't know, and there was an objection and it was sustained. So the jury actually asked a question like, "Are we like? Can we find out why that first officer was fired?" And
they just wanted the juice.
No.
They're like, we want the tea.
We just want
the tea. We're just curious. What do you do?
Yeah. So I'm like, all right,
a verdict, but we just want to know.
So I'm like, all right, well, that's I guess good. They're like starting to kind of look a little sideways at some of the police officers. Good. All right. Then at the end of the first day, at the end of Monday, they didn't really have a question. It was more of an issue where there was a juror that had a major doctor's appointment on Tuesday morning, so they wanted to start late. And this juror was one that like wasn't one of my favorites. And the judge was already of the mindset of like, F no, we're not starting late. Like, I want to get this done. So she's like, I would propose like we just replace this juror with the alternate and keep rolling. Because I think we had 2 alternates. And I'm like, I'm fine with that because I like the first alternate actually.
Okay.
And so yeah, we got that alternate, we got that in, and that was the only thing on Monday. And then we're waiting all day Tuesday. Midday Tuesday, we get a note from one of the jurors privately to the bailiff. And the note was complaining that one of the female jurors kept saying that she had a similar experience and she was terrified, and that's how she's evaluating the evidence. She's using her own experience in evaluating the evidence.
That's great that you got that intel, because I feel like that's kind of rare. Yeah.
And at that point, I'm thinking, maybe I'm looking at this the wrong way, but I'm thinking I got like an 11-1 situation going on here, or a 10-2, maybe if she's got a buddy, and I'm feeling really good. And so the way that the judge cured that was basically, I'm going to bring everybody in and just instruct them that they're to consider the evidence and set their experiences aside, just kind of the standard instruction for that. And then it was maybe like an hour later we had a verdict.
Wow. So yeah, describe the feeling of getting the verdict.
Very, it's like super, 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 super nervous. Like I just, this case is, the stakes can't be higher. I mean, I guess a death penalty could be higher, but that's about it.
Yeah. So you walk into the courtroom.
Walk into the courtroom.
Indictment. Client's in there.
Yeah. He's in there. Everyone, and now all my buddies from the Gwinnett DA's office that are still in the office, they get word there's a verdict, and I know how it goes in the office. They yell, and maybe they do that in the PD's office too. Like, they got a verdict, got a verdict, got a verdict.
Totally, yeah. We're like, and
that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, great. So this is either going to be easily the greatest moment of my career as a defense attorney, or like by far the worst, and all of the people that I worked with for years are going to see it. Like, all right. And then also, by the way, this guy's life's on the line, right?
Yeah,
so
that too.
There's that little minor thing. So
how's he doing?
He's very nervous as well. So the funny thing about the verdict process is, so normally I was used to the way that the verdict forms would be written is they'd go count by count, and it was, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty of, and there was a box, for whatever the charge was. Just say it's rape. Guilty of rape, and there's a little box. You check that if you think he's guilty. And then the next one would be not guilty. So it would give the options guilty first or not guilty. Guilty first or not guilty. That's how I've done probably 95% of my trials. For whatever reason, and I can't really remember why, this judge likes to flip it and give them the option to do not guilty first, I guess, to
she's a good judge.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
But I bet you it matters statistically if you look.
I think
at it.
Exactly. Yeah. When they see not, they're like, I would have convicted him. But that option first.
She does sound like a G based on her rulings and.
Yeah, she's great. Yeah. She's great. So she gets the verdict. The jurors come in, and of course you're trying to like play that game where like like, okay, can I like
read the tea leaves? Yeah.
And I could never tell.
Yeah.
And so the judge looks at the verdict form. It's a couple pages long because we got like 8 or 9 counts. And then she asks, attorneys come up to the bench, and she's holding the verdict form.
Oh, so you can like see through it? I always try to see through it. I'm always so far away.
I can see through it. But Dallas, I can see through it as I'm walking up. I have great vision. And I'm seeing that the first option is checked for all of them.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, oh, no, I lost. Because I'm thinking in my head, it's guilty as the first box.
Whoa.
So my heart is just sinking. I'm like, oh, my God.
No.
And then I get up there, and she, like, turns it around to me and the prosecutor, and I see it's, like, not guilty, not... And I'm like, oh, and I'm like, oh, but I'm trying not to have, like, a
You're like,
reaction.
Woo! Oh, sorry.
So, and obviously he was guilty of the battery, and everything else was not guilty across the board.
Wow.
And so
What a
I
relief.
turn around, and I'm looking at my client. He's looking at me, and I'm like very smoothly. I'm like trying to think what I'm going to say, and I just lean over to him and I tell him, "You're going home tonight."
Wow.
And that's what I tell him. And sit down. And he starts crying.
Oh my God.
And the judge she starts reading the verdict one by one, and he's crying. And I guess like I got a little emotional, like I held on there, but he was just like super emotional, and just like thanking me, and he was waving to the jury and all that. So it was awesome. It was I'll never forget that moment.
That's incredible.
Yeah, what a great moment.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
Yeah. So he had been in for 1,004 days, so he was guilty of the misdemeanor, but he got time served.
And he got to leave that day.
That night.
But it is an injustice a little bit because he's had to spend 3 years of his life in jail on something that he was convicted only, the max was only a year.
Because he's poor.
Because
he's poor.
Do you stay in touch with him?
I do stay in touch with him. So he, because of the battery conviction, the victim immediately went and got a TPO against him and was using that as the basis to deny him access to his son. And so he still really hasn't been able to see his son to this day. And, it's been tough for him. And he's back in Michigan. And we had talked about maybe grabbing a beer or something when he was back in town. Haven't been able to make that happen, but we do talk about sports. He's a big basketball, football guy, as am I, so we talk about that all the time. And he seems to be doing better.
Good. I'm glad that you guys stay in touch.
Awesome,
That's good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And how did you feel after that win? First win of many as a defense attorney. Did it convert you?
It definitely gave me that confidence I feel like I needed to know that like I can do this on this side of the fence, and trust my instincts, because I did some sort of controversial things that maybe people wouldn't do, objecting to null process, entering guilty pleas, telling the jury my client was in custody. But I thought through everything carefully, and I had a reason for the decisions I made. I think that paid off here. And
yeah, I'm inspired by a lot of that. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Extremely thoughtful.
You know the next question that's coming. Why did you come over to the sunny side? Why did you want to be a defense attorney?
So I grew up actually wanting to be a defense attorney. I feel and felt that very strongly that I can't imagine anything worse than to go to prison for something that you didn't do. And so that to me it just felt like a calling. Most people, I think, understand, especially nowadays, that it's important that we have good people doing this job, because when the government can just say you did something and put you in a cage, that's not a society that anybody wants to live in, right?
Yeah.
I feel like it took me a long, winding road to get here, but now I am, and I'm happy I am.
You made it, and you're doing great stuff.
Welcome.
And you guys are doing great. You guys are doing great stuff with this podcast. Let me tell you. And shout out to my Reddit people. The Public Defenders Forum is where I found out about this podcast. And yeah, you guys do an amazing job.
We're doing it.
So
yeah.
Thank you for what you do.
We couldn't do it without stories like yours. So thank you for coming on our podcast. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you for having me.
Mike. That was a great win.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Another Not Guilty. Shout out to Daniel Mark, original A&G theme music composer, and Mike Grimm for the remix. And guess what? We'll be back in 2 weeks with another Not Guilty, straight from the trenches.